A single mountain pass can rewrite the entire story of human progress. This video tackles a deep historical mystery. Why did these treacherous mountain gateways become such powerful centers of innovation? We will travel through ancient myths where heroes faced impossible riddles and walk alongside merchant caravans carrying more than just silk and spices. You will discover how adversity in these high corridors forged new technologies and forced unlikely collaborations that changed the world. By the end, you will never look at a mountain range as a barrier again, but as a doorway to incredible human advancement. How did a simple path through rock and ice become a cradle for civilization's greatest leaps? Thin air burns in your lungs as you climb, each step a battle against gravity itself. The wind howls with a voice that changes in an instant, shifting from a whisper to a roaring gale without warning. This was the reality of a mountain pass, a world of rock and ice that cared nothing for human ambition. It was a geographical crucible, a place of immense pressure that tested every aspect of a traveler's being. To even attempt the crossing, you needed more than courage. You needed ingenious solutions. Perhaps it was a new design for a pack to carry more weight, or a way to preserve food in the freezing cold, or a method for navigating when the path vanished beneath fresh snow. The mountain did not simply block the way, it demanded new ways of thinking. This harsh environment acted as a perfect filter. It turned back the unprepared, the poorly equipped, and the faint of heart. So who was left? Those who reached the high passes were the most determined pioneers, merchants carrying precious goods worth the incredible risk, and scholars guarding scrolls of new knowledge. The pass, by its very nature, created a bottleneck. It forced these diverse individuals, each a master of their own craft, into a shared space of struggle. In that moment, at the highest point of their journey, a silk trader from the east might share a fire with a metalworker from the west. A story about a strange star pattern told by one traveler could solve a navigational puzzle for another. The adversity of the place did not just test them, it broke down the barriers between them, forging connections that would have been impossible on the open plains below. This intense, focused interaction, born from a shared need to survive, became the first and most powerful ingredient for innovation. These ancient stories were not just fanciful tales. They were a profound form of memory, an instruction manual for the human spirit. The Greek Sphinx did not merely block a physical road, she guarded the passage to the city of Thebes. Her famous riddle, a question about a creature that walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 at noon, and 3 in the evening, was a perfect metaphor for the mountain pass itself. The answer, a human being, revealed the deeper challenge. To cross the threshold, you had to understand your own nature, your strengths and weaknesses across the journey of life. Brute force was useless against a creature of thought. Only a new perspective, a moment of mental innovation, could dissolve the barrier. This was the mythic lesson that the greatest obstacle was often a failure of imagination. Far to the north, the Norse envisioned Bifrost as a bridge of fire and air, a trembling, radiant path to Asgard. It was not a road for the reckless. The god Heimdallr stood guard, his wisdom ensuring only those prepared for the other world could make the crossing. This was not a simple gate, it was a test of spiritual readiness. To traverse the burning rainbow was to undergo a transformation, to leave one state of being and enter another. Both of these powerful myths point to the same core idea. The mountain pass was a liminal space, a threshold where the normal rules of the world were suspended. It was a place between the known village and the undiscovered valley, between the familiar self and the person you might become. In this in-between state, old solutions failed. You could not rely on habit or tradition. The myths taught that success in such a place demanded a different kind of strength, an internal cleverness and a willingness to see the world in a new way. They framed the geographical challenge as a spiritual and intellectual trial, encoding the earliest understanding that true progress begins at the border of the unknown. These legendary trade routes turned myth into motion. Across the spine of the world, the Silk Road wove a web of connection, and its lifeblood flowed through high mountain gateways like the Khyber Pass. Imagine the scene not as a silent, empty path, but as a bustling, noisy corridor of commerce. Enormous caravans laden with silk, spices, and precious metals moved like slow rivers through the stone valleys. But these travelers carried far more than material wealth. Each caravan was a mobile university, a living library of technology and culture on the hoof. At a crowded caravanserai, a resting stop carved into the mountainside, a merchant from China might unfurl a delicate compass to check his bearings. At the next fire, a scholar from Persia would observe this, then show his own device, an astrolabe for charting the stars. In that moment, two worlds of knowledge collided. They would talk, compare, and sketch ideas in the dust. The Chinese compass needle, always pointing north, could be combined with the detailed star maps of the Persian device. Together, they created a more reliable system for navigation, a hybrid innovation born from shared necessity high in the mountains. The sheer value of the cargo itself forced other leaps forward. Protecting a fortune in silk from bandits demanded new strategies for security and logistics. Which paths were safest? How could they communicate over long distances? The well-being of the camels and horses became a matter of economic survival, pushing the boundaries of animal husbandry to breed stronger, more resilient pack animals capable of enduring the thin air and rocky trails. And always there was the relentless economic pressure to find a better way. A shorter path meant less risk. A safer path meant more profit. This hunger for efficiency directly funded ambitious engineering projects and sent explorers scrambling up uncharted slopes, mapping the unknown in pursuit of a competitive edge. The constant, concentrated flow of wealth and ambition through these narrow stone gates made them irresistible magnets for the most inventive minds of the era. This constant flow of trade created a remarkable social experiment, one that unfolded in the shadow of towering peaks. Picture a Himalayan caravanserai at dusk, the air filled with the scent of cooking fires and the murmurs of a dozen different languages. Here, a Buddhist monk from India might share a simple meal with a Zoroastrian merchant from Persia and a Nestorian Christian traveler from Syria. They did not just trade spices or silk, they exchanged the very foundations of their worldviews. In their settled homelands, such a meeting might have been impossible, constrained by tradition and authority, but the mountain pass was a transient, neutral ground. No king held absolute power here, no single priesthood could enforce its doctrines. This was a space of radical equality, born from shared hardship, where the only currency that truly mattered was a useful idea. The intense cultural insularity that defined their home villages began to dissolve in the thin, cold air. What emerged in its place was a unique intellectual ferment, a cross-pollination of thought that reshaped civilizations. This exchange left a visible mark on the world. Along the trade routes, artists began to blend techniques in astonishing ways. In regions like ancient Gandhara, sculptors created statues of the Buddha, but they rendered him with the realistic, muscular grace of a Greek god. This Greco-Buddhist art is a direct testament to the conversations that happened at high altitudes, a fusion of Hellenistic idealism and Indian spirituality made solid in stone. Communication itself had to evolve to facilitate trade and basic understanding among wildly diverse groups. simplified pidgin languages naturally developed. These were not the refined tongues of scholars or priests, but practical, inventive dialects built from a mix of vocabularies, allowing a Tibetan trader to barter with a Sogdian merchant. Sometimes this need went further, leading to the creation of entirely new scripts to bridge linguistic divides. But the most profound exchanges were not written in stone or spoken in a new tongue. They were the quiet, firelit debates about the nature of the soul, the cosmos, and the divine, a Zoroastrian concept of a cosmic struggle between light and darkness might intrigue a Buddhist monk whose philosophy centered on ending suffering. A Christian idea of a single, personal God could be discussed alongside the complex pantheons of Hindu travelers. In this neutral zone, no single philosophy could dominate. This forced a level of tolerance and genuine curiosity that was rare in the settled lands below. Arguments were had, sure, but so was synthesis. New schools of thought were born from these encounters, hybrid beliefs that carried pieces of many traditions across the mountains and into new lands. The past did not just allow for the transfer of objects, it actively manufactured new ways of seeing the world. Where diplomacy and trade carved pathways, warfare often paved them with stone. The same narrow gateways that enriched merchants became the most contested real estate on the map, forcing armies to become engines of innovation. To move a legion or a siege tower across a mountain was a logistical puzzle of the highest order. The Roman legions were masters of this, their engineers transforming treacherous alpine goat trails into solid, enduring roads. These were not built for the beauty of the landscape, but for the swift, unstoppable march of soldiers. Yet long after the legions were gone, those very same roads carried the goods, ideas, and pilgrims of a peaceful continent for 1,000 years. The military's urgent need for mobility created a permanent gift for civilian life. The challenge of hauling massive war machines over high passes led to revolutionary advances in practical physics. How do you lift a multi-ton catapult up a near-vertical cliff face? The answer was found in refined pulley systems, complex arrangements of ropes and wheels that multiplied human strength. The carts that carried these engines had to be redesigned from the ground up, with stronger axles and more robust suspensions to withstand the brutal terrain. This was not theoretical engineering, it was problem-solving under extreme pressure, where failure meant losing a strategic advantage or facing defeat. Every solved problem created a new piece of technology that would later be adapted to lift building stones for cathedrals or haul ore from mines. The pass became a brutal, open-air research and development lab. When two armies met in these confined spaces, the conflict itself could become a perverse form of knowledge transfer. A battle at a high pass in the Caucasus Mountains might end with the capture of skilled engineers and their specialized tools. These prisoners were not merely soldiers, they were living repositories of military science. Forced into service for their new masters, they would bring with them advanced techniques for fortification, siegecraft, or metallurgy. A new style of defensive wall perfected in one mountain range could appear thousands of miles away in another within a single generation, carried not by peaceful traders but by the very mechanics of conflict. The relentless demands of securing a pass accelerated technological change at a dizzying pace, proving that even in its most destructive forms, human competition at the threshold could forge tools that ultimately benefited all. While armies fought over passes for earthly power, another kind of traveler moved through them for a different purpose entirely. These were the pilgrims, ordinary people on an extraordinary journey toward the sacred. Their destination was often a temple or shrine nestled in the heart of the mountains, a place believed to be closer to the divine. To reach a site like the Amarnath cave in the Himalayas, a natural ice formation revered by Hindus, or the distant city of Santiago de Compostela in Spain, pilgrims had no choice but to traverse the high, winding passes. This was not a journey for a select few merchants or soldiers, but a constant, massive flow of humanity spanning centuries. The sheer scale of this movement created a unique set of challenges that demanded new forms of social organization. How do you feed, shelter, and protect thousands of travelers on a path through the wilderness? The answer was an infrastructure of faith that grew along the routes. Monasteries and local communities built hostels to offer rest and simple hospitals to tend to the sick and injured. Markets emerged to supply pilgrims with everything from sturdy shoes to simple meals. This was an early, decentralized system of mass logistics, an innovation in community support that sustained a river of human aspiration. But the pilgrims carried more than just their faith and a walking staff. They were living messengers in a vast, informal network. In their packs were religious texts, copies of which were made and shared at stopping points. They carried relics, small objects of devotion that sparked conversations and spread artistic styles. They exchanged news and stories from their homelands, creating a grapevine of information that could travel faster than any royal messenger on a single, official road. A story told by a pilgrim from France, resting in a Pyrenees shelter, could be carried by a German traveler all the way to the gates of Rome. Perhaps the most profound innovation was the social one. On the pilgrimage road, your identity was reshaped. You were not merely a farmer from a specific village or a subject of a certain king. You were a pilgrim, a title that created a bond with every other traveler on the path. This shared spiritual goal fostered a powerful sense of a universal community, a connection that transcended the narrow loyalties of home. In the thin air of the mountain pass, people began to see themselves as part of something much larger, planting the earliest seeds for a more cosmopolitan and interconnected worldview. The mountain's weather was a force of pure unpredictability. One moment, the sun could be warm on your face. The next, a blinding blizzard would erase the world around you. This was not a simple obstacle to endure, but a dynamic, intelligent adversary that demanded an equally intelligent response. Survival in the high passes became a deep study of the environment itself. Generations of travelers learned to read the subtle signs in the clouds, the shift in the wind's tone, and the feel of the air, transforming this hard-won knowledge into a sophisticated science for predicting storms and identifying the brief, safe windows for a crossing. They mapped the mountain's moods, understanding which slopes held avalanche risk after a heavy snow, and which valleys offered shelter from the worst of the gales. This was not just observation, it was the birth of some of the earliest forms of applied environmental science, a legacy of awareness passed carefully from parent to child. This intimate knowledge of the climate drove remarkable innovations in what people wore and carried. To withstand the piercing cold of the Andes, weavers developed layered woolens of incredible complexity, creating textiles that trapped warmth without sacrificing mobility. On the high steppes of Central Asia, the answer was felt, a fabric crafted from pressed wool that formed boots and cloaks capable of repelling both moisture and wind. Every piece of this specialized gear was a direct answer to a life-threatening problem, a triumph of material science forged in the cold. The challenge extended to sustenance. How do you feed a caravan for weeks where no food grows and firewood is scarce? The solution was found in preservation. Meats were dried and salted into jerky, and simple, durable breads like hardtack were baked to last for months. These compact, high-calorie foods were the original survival rations, enabling journeys that would have otherwise been impossible. Even the very idea of shelter was reimagined. The classic Swiss chalet, with its steeply pitched roof designed to shed immense snow loads, is a direct architectural response to the alpine environment. Similarly, the thick stone walls and compact, window-minimizing design of a Tibetan house were not merely stylistic choices, but brilliant engineering solutions for insulation and protection against relentless winds. These structures were more than homes, they were lifeboats of warmth and safety carved into the landscape, their designs refined over centuries of trial and error at the roof of the world. In overcoming the brutal climate, people did not just learn to survive the mountain pass, they learned to understand it. They created resilient, portable systems for living that turned a journey through certain hardship into a calculated, manageable risk. This hard-won mastery over the elements was a quiet, continuous revolution, one that equipped humanity to push further into the unknown. So how can we recreate that ancient spark of innovation in our own lives? The first principle is to foster forced interaction. A mountain pass was not a gentle suggestion for travelers to mingle, it was a geographical command. It compressed diverse groups into a shared space of struggle, making communication and cooperation unavoidable. We can design modern versions of this bottleneck. Think of a cross-departmental workshop where engineers and marketing specialists are locked in a room to solve a customer experience problem. Their languages are different, their goals often seem to clash, but the shared objective forces them to find a common tongue. Or consider an innovation lab that intentionally mixes a veteran product designer with a fresh graduate in artificial intelligence. One understands the limits of materials and human use, the other sees possibilities that defy conventional logic. The creative friction between them is not a problem to be solved, it is the very engine of breakthrough. This is the modern equivalent of the merchant and the blacksmith at the high campfire. The merchant needed a more durable pack for his porcelain. The blacksmith knew the properties of new alloys. Their collaboration did not just fix a broken strap, it produced an entirely new class of harness that changed transport logistics. In your own work or community, seek out these constrained collaborations. Partner with someone from an unrelated field on a passion project. Create a team where success is impossible without each member contributing their unique and likely very different piece of the puzzle. Do not avoid the tension that comes from different perspectives, lean into it. That friction is the sound of old boundaries breaking down, making way for something entirely new to be born. The second practice is to consciously embrace the liminal space. A mountain pass was never a destination in itself, but a powerful threshold, a state of transition where one reality was left behind and another had not yet been reached. This psychological space is where the magic happens, where the rigid frameworks of your expertise soften and new connections can form. To cultivate this, you must deliberately step out of your own professional valley. An accountant might attend a conference for experimental musicians, not to become a composer, but to witness an entirely different approach to structure, improvisation, and collaboration. A software engineer could take a course in poetry, learning the art of conveying maximum meaning with minimal words, a skill that might revolutionize how they write code. The goal is not mastery of the new field, but the act of displacement itself. In this unfamiliar territory, the old rules of your daily work no longer fully apply. The resulting disorientation is not a sign of failure, but a signal that your brain is being forced off its well-worn neural pathways. This mental friction is the crucible where true innovation is forged, as you begin to see your own challenges through an entirely new lens, allowing the foreign to reshape the familiar into something unprecedented. Scarcity is the mother of invention, a truth carved into the rock of every high pass. On a mountain journey, the lack of everything you take for granted becomes your constant companion. The air itself holds less life, food supplies dwindle with every step, and the window of good weather can slam shut in an instant. This brutal reality did not invite despair, it demanded ingenuity. You could not simply wish for more oxygen. You had to learn to breathe differently, to pace your steps to the rhythm of the thin air. You could not carry an endless supply of food, so you invented ways to make a little nourishment last for a very long time. The constraint of time forced you to read the sky, to become a student of the mountain's subtle moods, predicting its storms to find that one safe day for a crossing. These were not compromises, they were creative breakthroughs born from absolute necessity. You can harness this same powerful force. In your own projects, try a radical experiment. Instead of beginning with the question, what could we do with a limitless budget and endless time, impose strict, artificial constraints. Challenge your team by asking, what is the most elegant, powerful solution we can build using only these 10 specific components, or within this single week? Why does this work? Constraint forces an intense focus, stripping away the non-essential. It forces you to ask what the core function really is, and to prioritize that above all else. The results are often not just simpler, but more robust and clever, precisely because they had to be. The need to cross a mountain with a heavy load did not just lead to stronger backs. It led to the domestication of the yak and the llama, animals perfectly adapted to an environment that would kill a horse. Your own creative constraints can lead you to discover your own version of the yak, a resource, a method, or a partnership you never knew you needed, but which becomes the key to unlocking an entirely new path forward. A simple rope bridge swaying over a bottomless chasm seems like a fragile thing. Yet for the Inca Empire, these structures woven from mountain grass were the steel cables of their world, vital arteries that bound a vast realm together across the Andes. The construction was a masterpiece of communal effort and material science. Teams on opposite cliffs would fly a thin guide rope across using a kite or a bow. Then the weavers began their work, braiding thicker cables, their hands moving with a rhythm perfected over generations. The final bridge was not a static object, but a living, breathing entity that required constant renewal, a shared responsibility for the surrounding communities. This was engineering as a social contract, an innovation born from the absolute necessity of connection. Far to the north and centuries later, the Romans approached the problem with a different philosophy. Their viaducts were statements of permanent conquest, marching through alpine valleys on towering stone arches. They were not merely laying a road, they were imposing a geometric order upon the chaos of the mountains. The knowledge required was immense. Roman engineers had to understand how to mix concrete that could set underwater, how to calculate the perfect curve of an arch to distribute immense weight, and how to manage the violent torrents of spring meltwater. Every viaduct was a university of applied physics, its lessons written in stone and mortar. The most profound legacy of these marvels was not the structure itself, but the portable knowledge they created. The techniques for anchoring a bridge in the thin air of a Himalayan gorge, solving problems of wind shear and freezing temperatures, became a form of intellectual currency. This hard-won expertise could travel. The same understanding of tension and compression that stabilized a rope bridge could later inform the soaring vaults of a Gothic cathedral, allowing medieval architects to build higher and let in more light. The mountain pass, in demanding a solution to its specific, brutal challenge, had generated a blueprint that reshaped landscapes thousands of miles away. Today, this legacy continues in projects like the Gotthard Base Tunnel, a 35-mile-long miracle bored straight through the heart of the Swiss Alps. It is the antithesis of a winding mountain road, a deliberate rejection of the climb in favor of a direct, low-energy path. This is not just a longer tunnel, it is a redefinition of the mountain's role from a barrier to be surmounted to a landscape to be seamlessly bypassed. The innovations required, from colossal tunnel boring machines that grind through solid rock to complex ventilation systems that manage air pressure and temperature, are the direct descendants of those first grass bridges and stone viaducts. Each generation's solution to the mountain permanently lowers the cost of the next great crossing, turning yesterday's impossible dream into today's foundation for tomorrow's journey. A caravan's true wealth was not measured in silk or gemstones, but in the weightless, invisible knowledge it carried. Alongside bolts of fabric and sacks of spice, traveled revolutionary ideas that would reshape the world's intellectual landscape. Mathematical breakthroughs born in the ancient universities of India journeyed west through the high passes. The concept of the numeral zero, a symbol for nothing that could make calculation possible with everything, was not just a new number. It was a new way of thinking about quantity and value, a philosophical leap that traveled on foot alongside merchants who used it to keep their accounts. Similarly, the structured science of algebra, a system for solving complex problems with unknown values, moved from the scholarly centers of Baghdad into the heart of Europe. These were not merely facts to be memorized, but powerful new tools for understanding the universe, and they spread because the mountain routes forced thinkers from different traditions into a prolonged, intimate exchange. The clear, thin air of the high passes offered more than just a physical challenge. It provided a perfect window to the heavens. At remote caravanserais or monastic outposts perched on rocky ledges, astronomers from different cultures found common ground. A scholar from Samarkand with detailed charts of planetary movements might compare notes with a traveler from Cairo who had observed a unique celestial event. By merging their separate records gathered under different skies, they could refine their models of the cosmos. One culture's constellation was another's mythological figure, but the mathematics of their motion was a universal language they could build upon together. This collaborative spirit extended to the most urgent of sciences, medicine. A surgical technique for treating injuries perfected in one region could save a life 1,000 miles away. The knowledge of which mountain herb could ease a fever or heal a wound was a treasure more valuable than gold, exchanged eagerly between healers at roadside camps. A Greek physician's theory about bodily humors might be challenged and enriched by an Indian doctor's focus on herbal antidotes, each practitioner contributing a piece to a larger puzzle of human well-being. This constant, fluid exchange created something astonishingly modern, a decentralized global network of learning that operated for centuries. There was no central university, no single library of Alexandria holding all this wisdom. Instead, knowledge was distributed, resilient, and carried in the minds and scroll cases of countless individuals. Each traveler was a living library, a unique collection of stories, techniques, and observations. And the mountain pass, that demanding and neutral ground, became the reading room where these human libraries intersected. It was a place where a single conversation could cross-reference an entire civilization's understanding of the stars with another's knowledge of the human body, sparking a synthesis no single culture could have achieved alone. That mythological guardian blocking the pass was far more than a simple monster. It was a profound symbol of the very real barriers that stand between a good idea and a world-changing innovation. The creature demanding a riddle be solved before you can proceed represents two distinct kinds of resistance every pioneer faces. The external guardian is the skepticism of the establishment, the weight of tradition that says this is not how things are done. It is the technical challenge that seems insurmountable with existing tools, the vested interest that profits from the old way and will actively block the new. But the more subtle and often more powerful guardian is the internal one. This is the voice of our own fear, the deep-seated aversion to risk that urges us to turn back to the safety of the known valley. It is the cognitive bias that makes us favor familiar solutions, even when they are clearly failing. The myth teaches a critical lesson. You cannot slay this guardian with a sword, with brute force or sheer stubbornness. The old methods are useless here. Victory lies not in combat but in conversation. You must answer the riddle. You must reframe the problem itself, approaching it with a perspective the guardian has never encountered. In our modern world, these guardians appear constantly. A corporate team might face the external guardian of a legacy system that is expensive to replace, and the internal guardian of a team culture resistant to learning a new software. Trying to force the change through mandates or fear will only make the guardian stronger. The breakthrough comes when someone reframes the question. Instead of asking, "How do we make people use this new system?" they ask, "What fundamental need does our team have that the old system fails to meet?" The answer to that riddle leads to a tailored solution that feels like an answer, not an attack. By recognizing the guardians in our path not as enemies to be destroyed, but as gatekeepers testing our understanding, we shift our entire strategy. We prepare not for a battle, but for a dialogue with the problem itself. This mental shift from confrontation to creative engagement is the secret to turning a seemingly impossible barrier into a gateway. These temporary societies were a profound departure from the rigid structures of home. In a caravanserai, your status was not defined by your birth or your wealth, but by your immediate contribution to the shared goal of survival and progress. The established social ladder was left behind in the lowlands, creating a space of radical equality where a master cartographer and a young porter could debate the best route forward on equal footing. This lack of permanent hierarchy was a powerful catalyst for creative freedom. When you are not worried about protecting your long-term position within a fixed organization, you are far more willing to share a wild, unproven idea. The fear of looking foolish diminishes when the community itself is designed to dissolve by morning. This transient nature encouraged a kind of intellectual bravery that is often stifled in our permanent institutions. We can actively design modern versions of these fleeting, purpose-driven communities. Think of a weekend hackathon where programmers, designers, and entrepreneurs who have never met before form a team to build a prototype from scratch. For 48 hours, they exist in a social bubble. There are no departmental silos, no annual review hanging over their heads, and no legacy of past conflicts to navigate. The only thing that matters is the shared, intense focus on solving the challenge before them. In this environment, a junior developer can propose a radical algorithm without fear, and a seasoned marketer can admit they do not understand a technical term, sparking a conversation that leads to a clearer, more powerful user interface. This is the magic of the transient community. It creates a safe container for professional vulnerability, which is the bedrock of genuine experimentation. The same principle fuels a short-term mastermind group, where professionals from different companies gather for a set number of weeks to tackle a specific leadership or innovation problem. Because the members know the group has an expiration date, the normal guardedness of corporate life falls away. They are more open to sharing their real struggles and half-baked ideas, understanding that the collective brainpower in the room is a temporary gift to be used fully. Even a focused online forum dedicated to a niche challenge like sustainable packaging or early childhood education can function as a digital caravanserai. Strangers converge from around the world, offer their unique piece of knowledge, collaborate intensely on a whiteboard or a document, and then disperse back into their regular lives, leaving behind a solution that is richer for their brief, unburdened union. The innovation born in these spaces has a unique purity to it, untainted by the politics of personal legacy. It is driven by the shared purpose of the moment, a fleeting fire that burns brightly precisely because it knows it will not last forever. In biology, a mountain range does more than just separate two valleys. It carefully regulates the flow of life itself. Populations of the same species living on either side can slowly drift apart, their genes mixing only when a few adventurous individuals cross the high pass. This slow, selective exchange is what biologists call gene flow, and it is a fundamental engine for evolution. The pass acts as a filter, allowing only the most resilient traits to make the journey. Perhaps a plant with a slightly deeper root system survives the drier slopes, or a beetle with a unique coloration evades predators on the rocky trail. Over generations, this trickle of new genetic material can lead to something extraordinary, the emergence of an entirely new species, better adapted and more robust than its isolated ancestors. This is not just a story about biology, it is the perfect analogy for how human ideas evolve. Our concepts, technologies, and beliefs are a form of culture's DNA, often called memes. They are the units of knowledge that are copied, shared, and passed down. An isolated culture, like an isolated biological population, risks intellectual inbreeding, where the same ideas are endlessly recycled without any fresh perspective to challenge or improve them. The mountain pass in our modern world is any mechanism that forces a recombination of these memes from different cultural gene pools. It is the interdisciplinary conference where a physicist hears a lecture on architectural design and suddenly envisions a new structural material. It is the online forum where a chef and a chemist collaborate to perfect the science of plant-based meats. These are our mimetic passes, the vital gateways where ideas from different valleys meet, mate, and give birth to revolutionary new hybrids. The most resilient and adaptive innovations are never born in a vacuum. They are the ones that have been tested and refined through this very exchange, their weaknesses exposed and their strengths amplified by encountering a completely different way of thinking. To keep your own ideas from stagnating, you must actively seek out these high-altitude junctions. Subscribe to a journal from a field you know nothing about. Attend a workshop for artists when you are an engineer. In doing so, you are not just gathering information, you are opening the floodgates for a powerful flow of intellectual genes, ensuring the health and continuous evolution of your own understanding. For over 1,000 years, the Brenner Pass carved a deep groove through the very heart of the Alps. This was not a quiet path, but a roaring corridor of political ambition, a geological wrinkle that became the central nervous system of European power. Imperial messengers raced along its trails, their saddlebags stuffed with royal decrees, while behind them lumbered carts carrying something even more transformative than parchment, the very soul of an age expressed in stone. When the soaring spires of Gothic architecture began their march north from France, they did not float over the mountains, they moved through this pass. The knowledge of the flying buttress, a revolutionary idea that allowed walls to become vast windows of stained glass, traveled with stonemasons and architects walking this road. Their journey transformed the skylines of German cities, as local builders adapted the French vision to their own materials and sensibilities, creating a unique hybrid style born from the journey itself. Centuries later, the current would reverse. The human-centered light of the Italian Renaissance, with its rediscovery of perspective and classical forms, flowed north through this same stone gateway. The ideas of Da Vinci and Michelangelo, carried in the minds of scholars and the sketches of artists, met the Gothic north and sparked a new creative fire, proving the pass was a two-way valve for the continent's cultural lifeblood. This constant, churning exchange was fueled by raw political necessity. The medieval Kaiserpfalz, the circuit of royal palaces that dotted the Holy Roman Empire, relied on the Brenner as its essential connective tissue. An emperor could not rule a fractured realm from a single throne. He had to be seen to project his authority across the land. His entire court, a mobile city of administrators, soldiers, and craftsmen, became a traveling workshop of statecraft, forced to navigate the pass season after season. In this pressure cooker of motion, systems for governing a vast territory were not just planned in quiet chambers, they were lived and refined on the road. How do you collect taxes across different regions with their own laws and languages? How do you resolve a legal dispute between a Bavarian duke and a Venetian merchant? The solutions, forged in the thin air between north and south, became the administrative glue that held an empire together. Later, the mighty Habsburg monarchy would treat the Brenner as its own private artery, pumping soldiers, diplomats, and artistic patronage back and forth between Vienna and Venice. Every new political theory, every innovation in law or administration, had to prove its worth on this road. A legal code drafted in one capital would be tested in the towns along the route, its flaws exposed and its strength solidified by the practical realities of cross-cultural trade and conflict. The pass was a relentless, real-world proving ground, a political and cultural laboratory where the abstract blueprints for Europe's future were taken for a test drive through the mountains. The Khyber Pass is a scar on the Earth's surface, a 50-kilometer gash through the Spingar Mountains that functioned for millennia as a revolving door for entire civilizations. Its stone walls have echoed with the marching feet of Alexander's Macedonian phalanxes, the thunderous cavalry of Genghis Khan, and the disciplined ranks of the British Raj. Each army was a mobile academy of warfare, and the pass was its final examination. When Alexander pushed his forces through this narrow defile, he was not just moving soldiers, he was testing and adapting his entire military system under the most extreme conditions. The Macedonian Sarissa, a pike of incredible length, met new forms of guerrilla resistance that forced tactical innovation on the fly. Centuries later, the Mongols swept through, their composite bows and strategies of lightning maneuver forever altering the subcontinent's understanding of conquest. The British, in their turn, introduced new logistical systems and fortifications, their presence cementing the pass as the most strategically vital piece of terrain in the region. This was not a one-way street of destruction. Each conquering force, in its moment of victory, absorbed the local knowledge of the defeated. Metalworking techniques, siegecraft, and even equestrian skills were the real spoils of war, traded back and forth across the mountains in the silent economy of conflict, ensuring that military science never stood still. But the true legacy of the Khyber is not written in battle plans alone. Long after the armies had moved on, the same stone corridor became a river for the most profound philosophical ideas the world has ever known. Buddhist monks traveling from the plains of India carried the teachings of the Buddha through this very pass and into the heart of Central Asia. Their sutras, meticulously copied onto scrolls, seeded new schools of thought in oasis towns like Dunhuang, where the serene faces of the Buddha first began to appear in art. Centuries later, the cultural current reversed. Armies and traders from Persia and Central Asia brought Islam into the Indian subcontinent through this same gateway. This was not merely a replacement of one faith by another. It was a grand, centuries-long conversation. In the shadow of the pass, Sufi mystics found common ground with Hindu ascetics, their shared focus on a direct, personal experience of the divine transcending the boundaries of doctrine. This spiritual cross-pollination gave birth to entirely new movements, like the devotional Bhakti tradition, which wove threads of both traditions into a vibrant new tapestry of faith. The past did not just allow religions to move, it forced them to interact, to debate, and ultimately to synthesize into richer, more complex forms. The most enduring cargo, however, was knowledge that could be measured and proven. While kings fought over the land, scholars quietly exchanged the tools to understand the universe itself. The revolutionary Indian numeral system, complete with its elegant concept of zero, traveled west through the Khyber. This was not a simple transfer of symbols, it was the delivery of a new cognitive operating system for science and commerce, enabling calculations that were previously unthinkable. Astronomical tables compiled in Indian observatories, detailing the motions of planets with stunning accuracy, found their way into the hands of Persian and Arab scholars. These were not just lists of numbers, they were competing models of the cosmos. By comparing their separate observations, scholars from different cultures could refine their predictions, correct errors, and build a more complete, more accurate map of the heavens. The Khyber Pass, in its relentless role as a connector, ensured that no single civilization could claim a monopoly on truth. It guaranteed that a mathematical breakthrough in one valley would become the foundation for an astronomical discovery in another, weaving a single, unbreakable thread of human inquiry across continents and centuries. That temporary bond forged in the thin air of the high pass reveals a fifth powerful principle for innovation: the need for a shared challenge. The universal struggle to simply survive the crossing created an instant, powerful camaraderie among people who might otherwise have been rivals. A silk merchant and a soldier who would never have broken bread in their home cities now huddled around the same small fire, passing a waterskin and sharing advice on the trail ahead. Their differences in language, religion, and social status did not vanish, but they were suddenly overshadowed by a single, undeniable truth: they all needed to get to the other side alive. This common, difficult objective rewired their priorities, making collaboration the only logical path forward. We can replicate this dynamic in our own teams and organizations by deliberately creating our own version of the mountain. This shared challenge could be a moonshot project, an ambitious deadline that seems just out of reach, or a collective performance goal that everyone must contribute to. When a diverse group faces a common, formidable objective, something remarkable happens. Petty internal competition and departmental silos begin to dissolve, not because of a mandate from management, but because they have become a luxury the team can no longer afford. The shared struggle to cross this metaphorical pass forces a new level of communication and trust. The marketing specialist stops guarding their data so jealously and shares it freely with the engineer, because they both now understand that the success of the launch depends on that very exchange. The struggle itself becomes the glue that binds the team together, aligning everyone's creative energy toward a single, innovative outcome. The mountain does not ask which department you are from, it only asks if you can help pull the rope. In this space, the only thing that matters is the shared journey to the summit. Yet the very openness that enabled a golden age of exchange also carried a hidden, devastating price. The crowded caravanserais and bustling mountain towns, those hubs of cultural fusion, became perfect incubators for invisible threats. When a merchant or a soldier unknowingly carried a new pathogen into these high-altitude mixing zones, the results could be catastrophic. The same network that carried spices and silk with breathtaking speed became a superhighway for pandemics, with the Black Death being the most infamous traveler of them all. This microscopic innovation in disease, finding its perfect vector in human movement, reminds us that a gateway works both ways. The strategic importance of a pass, its value in controlling the flow of goods, made it a permanent magnet for conflict. The same stone defile that sheltered a peaceful caravan one season would echo with the clash of armies the next. And just as merchants compared compasses, generals and weaponsmiths exchanged the grim technologies of warfare. A new design for a more powerful siege engine, a recipe for Greek fire, or a tactical formation for cavalry, these innovations in destruction traveled the mountain roads as efficiently as any philosophical text. This is the essential duality of the gateway. The mountain pass itself possesses no morality. It is simply a fact of geology. It amplifies whatever passes through it, whether that is a life-saving medical technique or a plague, a beautiful artistic style or a new and more efficient sword. This ancient lesson forces a profound ethical question upon us today. As we build our own digital mountain passes, our global networks for information and trade, we must constantly ask ourselves not only what we can send through them, but what we should. The true challenge of innovation lies not in the creation of the gateway, but in the wisdom we exercise with every single thing we choose to send through it. A mountain pass never offered a guarantee, only a lesson in brutal pragmatism. The carefully charted route could vanish under a sudden avalanche. A planned 10-day crossing could stretch to 20 in a blizzard, and the last sack of grain became the most valuable currency on Earth. This relentless uncertainty did not merely demand patience, it forged a specific kind of intelligence, one that thrived on change. Travelers in these high corridors became masters of adaptability, their very survival depending on an ability to pivot, to improvise, and to see a blocked path not as a dead end, but as an invitation to find a new one. This is the essence of antifragility, a concept where systems do not just withstand shocks, they actually grow stronger from them. A caravan that survived a brutal storm learned precisely how to pack its loads more securely next time, which rock overhangs offered the best shelter, and how to ration its water to the last drop. The disorder of the mountain did not break them, it educated them. You can build this same resilient mindset directly into your own creative processes. Instead of betting everything on one grand, perfect plan, treat your projects like a series of small-scale expeditions. Build a prototype, a minimal version of your idea, and send it out into the metaphorical weather. Watch how people use it, or just as importantly, how they ignore it. When this small experiment encounters a storm, when users struggle with a feature or a material fails under stress, that is not a failure of your plan. It is a precious data point, a message from the real world telling you exactly where to reinforce your design. The goal was never to build an unsinkable ship, but to become a captain who knows how to navigate any sea. By planning for these small, controlled failures, you stop fearing the unexpected and start learning from it, turning every setback into the foundation of a more robust and intelligent solution. The constant clamor of a dozen different languages at a mountain caravanserai created a unique problem of its own. How could a Tibetan trader agree on a price for Persian dates with a merchant who spoke only Arabic? The solution was not to learn the other's entire language, but to invent a new one together. Out of this necessity, a remarkable linguistic alchemy was born, giving rise to streamlined trade jargons and vibrant Creole languages. These were not broken or simple versions of existing tongues, but brilliant innovations in communication, engineered for maximum efficiency and clarity. They stripped away complex grammar and poetic flourishes, focusing only on the core words and structures needed to negotiate, navigate, and cooperate. On the East African coast, Swahili emerged as the language of commerce, a graceful fusion of Bantu grammar with a rich vocabulary borrowed from Arabic traders. It became the linguistic bridge that connected the interior of the continent with the maritime world of the Indian Ocean. Similarly, in the Mediterranean ports, a pidgin known as sabir allowed sailors, pirates, and merchants from Italy, Spain, France, and the Arab world to understand each other. It was a minimal, practical tool that turned a chaotic waterfront into a functional marketplace. This linguistic innovation had a powerful economic impact, dramatically reducing what we would now call the transaction costs of trade. When a deal could be struck in minutes instead of days, and misunderstandings over contracts became rare, the flow of goods and ideas accelerated exponentially. The mountain pass had proven that even the very structure of human communication could be redesigned for better flow. The modern equivalent of this is hiding in plain sight within our own organizations. Every department develops its own specialized jargon, a tribal language that creates invisible walls. When an engineer talks about scalability and an accountant discusses amortization about the same project, they are effectively speaking different dialects. The path to collaborative innovation is smoothed not by one side learning the other's complex language, but by deliberately creating a shared, simple vocabulary that everyone on the team understands and uses. This common tongue, free of insider acronyms and technical obscurities, becomes the new sabir of your project, a linguistic tool that ensures every brilliant idea, no matter where it originates, can find its way safely across the pass. This profound shift in perspective was perhaps the greatest innovation of all. For countless generations, a mountain range was the end of the known world, a wall of rock and fear. Yet slowly, through the accumulated journeys of countless travelers, that perception began to invert. The very wall itself became the doorway. This was not merely a change in route planning, it was a fundamental rewiring of the human mind, a cognitive leap that lies at the very heart of all creative progress. The constraint was no longer a stop sign, it was a challenge to build a better cart. The obstacle was no longer a division, but a reason to reach out and connect. The mountain, which had physically separated cultures for millennia, became the active agent that forced them together, transforming isolation into the most powerful form of interaction. You can apply this exact same philosophical pivot to any seemingly insurmountable problem in your own life or work. The next time you face a daunting limitation, a budget cut, a technical roadblock, or a market shift, pause and reframe the question entirely. Stop asking, how can we avoid this obstacle or just get through it? Start asking a more radical set of questions. How can this very obstacle become our greatest asset? How can this constraint connect us to a resource or a partner we never considered? How can this wall be repurposed into a bridge? This mental move from barrier thinking to bridge thinking is the essence of true innovation. It is the moment you stop seeing the mountain as something to go around and start seeing it as the very reason for the journey itself. A traveler's most vital possession was not the goods they carried, but the knowledge of the path itself. This hard-won wisdom, paid for in hardship and sometimes in lives, was far too valuable to remain locked in a single memory, so they began to write it down, creating the first specialized guidebooks for the daring. Ancient Greek sailors compiled documents known as peripli, which were not just maps but vivid narratives detailing coastlines, safe anchorages, and crucially, the locations of freshwater springs. In the same way, medieval navigators relied on rutters, books that recorded the subtle signs of the sea, the behavior of currents, and the shapes of headlands. These were not dry lists of coordinates. They were collective survival manuals, stitching together the individual discoveries of countless journeys into a single, shared resource for all who would follow. This practice of documentation transformed a solitary, perilous gamble into a manageable, repeatable process. The mountain pass demanded the same discipline. Detailed itineraries carved onto clay tablets or written on parchment told future caravans exactly how many days of travel lay between one caravanserai and the next, where the last reliable grazing for the pack animals could be found, and which narrow ledge was most treacherous after the spring melt. This was not mere record-keeping. It was the institutionalization of experience, a way of ensuring that the price paid by one generation of travelers became the safety net for the next. In our modern world of innovation, this exact same principle applies with even greater force. The most brilliant breakthrough is functionally worthless if its origins, its missteps, and its final logic remain trapped in the mind of its creator. The discipline of clear, thorough documentation is what turns a flash of individual insight into a permanent part of our collective intelligence. When you meticulously record not only your successes but also your failures, you are building a detailed itinerary for those who will come after you. You are marking the intellectual equivalent of a dangerous cliff and a safe water source, saving your colleagues and your future self from repeating the same exhausting detours. But creating this knowledge is only half of the ancient practice. The other, equally vital half is dissemination. A map locked in a vault helps no one. The creators of the periply did not hide their scrolls, they copied them and sent them out with every ship. In doing so, they created a knowledge caravan, a flowing river of practical intelligence that connected distant ports and enabled every new captain to stand on the shoulders of all who had sailed before. You must do the same with your own discoveries. Share your documented findings through internal reports, team presentations, or even a simple blog post. By actively disseminating your work, you are not just reporting on a project, you are launching your own knowledge caravan into the world. You are allowing your unique solution to travel, to mingle with the ideas of others in different fields, and to combine in ways you could never have predicted, sparking the next great crossing somewhere else entirely. Our world now spins on a digital axis, its most vital pathways woven not from stone and ice, but from fiber optic light and code. The internet itself is the ultimate decentralized mountain range, a sprawling network of digital passes where data caravans travel at the speed of thought. In this new landscape, online platforms and open-source repositories function as our global caravanserais, bustling virtual spaces where a programmer in Bangalore can seamlessly merge her code with a designer in Brazil, building a new piece of software overnight. The ancient principles of the Mountain Gateway are more relevant than ever, just translated into a new language. These digital passes dramatically lower the barrier to entry for collaboration, demolishing the geographical and financial walls that once kept innovators in separate valleys. A groundbreaking idea no longer needs a wealthy patron or a royal charter, it simply needs a connection. This frictionless environment forces powerful interactions between fields that were once isolated. Consider the fusion of bioinformatics and artificial intelligence, where biologists who understand the intricate language of life are collaborating with engineers who build neural networks. Their shared digital workspace is the modern high camp, a place where the challenge of mapping a protein's shape is solved not by one discipline alone, but by the startling combination of both. And just like the physical pass, the digital world creates its own bottlenecks. Attention is the new scarce resource, the thin air of the online realm. In the immense flow of information, only the most robust, valuable, and clearly communicated ideas rise to the top, tested and refined by the global community. Understanding the ancient dynamics of the mountain pass gives us a powerful lens for designing these new landscapes. We can intentionally build platforms that foster the same kind of creative friction, that force diverse thinkers into productive collision, and that ensure the most vital knowledge does not get lost in the noise, but finds its way across the digital divide to spark the next world-changing innovation. A mountain pass was never a shortcut. Its true value was measured in the blisters earned, the storms endured, and the strangers who became guides. We have spent our entire journey exploring how these gateways forged new technologies and blended cultures, but the most profound change often happened within the traveler. The summit was merely a geographical point, a brief moment before the descent. the real transformation was woven into every difficult step of the climb. Our modern world, however, has become obsessed with the summit. We fixate on the product launch, the quarterly earnings report, the final number on a scale. These destinations are not unimportant, but by focusing on them exclusively, we blind ourselves to the rich, messy, and essential learning that happens only on the path. We try to helicopter directly to the peak, missing the very experiences that equip us to stay there. A culture that worships only success breeds a deep fear of failure. It teaches people to hide their mistakes, to choose the safe, well-worn path instead of the uncertain one that might lead to a new vista. But look back at the history of the pass. The first person to try crossing after the spring melt undoubtedly failed. They turned back, their route blocked by an impassable river of snowmelt. That was not a defeat. It was a data point. They returned to the village and reported that the pass would not be safe for another 2 weeks. That single piece of gathered intelligence, born from a failed attempt, saved countless future travelers. This is the wisdom we must reclaim. The most innovative organizations today are not the ones with a perfect track record. They are the ones that have learned to honor the journey itself. They create psychological safety for their teams to experiment, knowing that 9 out of 10 experiments might not work as planned. They celebrate the clever failure, the prototype that taught them exactly how not to build something, because that knowledge is often more valuable than an easy, incremental success. They reward raw curiosity, the simple question of what if, even when it leads down a winding and unprofitable trail for a time. This is not a lack of discipline. It is the highest form of it, an understanding that the winding path of trial and error is the only forge for genuine, lasting breakthroughs. The mountain did not care if you reached the other side. It only asked that you learn its language along the way. The path was not an obstacle to the purpose. The path, with all its hardship and wonder, was the purpose itself. The Roman poet Virgil captured this spirit perfectly when he wrote, "They can because they think they can." That simple line holds the entire secret of the mountain pass. It was never the physical strength of the traveler that guaranteed a crossing, but the strength of an idea, the conviction that a path existed even when it was hidden by fog. We have journeyed together from myth-guarded paths to digital highways, and the principle remains unshaken. Innovation does not bloom in the comfortable center of a village, but out there in the challenging spaces between worlds. These mountain gateways, through trade and conflict, through pilgrimage and raw necessity, became the most powerful engines for the exchange of everything that makes us human. They forced the most unlikely collaborations, bred a profound resilience, and taught generation after generation to reframe every obstacle as a hidden opportunity. So let this exploration be a map for your own journey. Seek out your own mountain passes, those demanding and liminal spaces in your work and life where different disciplines, cultures, and perspectives collide. Do not avoid the climb. Embrace the struggle of the journey, share the knowledge you gather freely, and trust that the next great idea, the one that changes everything, is often waiting just on the other side of a barrier you once believed